From Chicago, welcome to 3Degrees Discussions. I'm your host, Mike Vasquez. This is a podcast devoted to the stories behind the innovators, entrepreneurs, and leaders in the 3D printing industry.
So the principle is material saving and this energy saving. So we use less energy because we make a smaller part and very essential, and we use only the essential material. So I think at the base of additive manufacturing, there is a good sustainability. But more and more, we see the big potentiality.
That was Valeria Tirelli. She's the president and CEO of her family's manufacturing company, Aidro Hydraulics. Aidro's main activities are design, production, and testing of hydraulic components produced in conventional manufacturing and 3D printing. Aidro is a pioneer in the use of metal additive manufacturing in fluid power, oil and gas, mobile machinery, aerospace, and industrial applications. She joins the show today to talk about the adoption of additive manufacturing within her business and the way that it's opened new markets. Before we get started, head over to www.3degreescompany.com and subscribe to the podcast. Remember, you can listen to the show anywhere you download your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, Amazon, or Stitcher. Valeria, thank you so much for joining the show today. You've got a fascinating story in the additive manufacturing world. I want to kind of first give you the chance to kind of introduce yourself and your company, and then we can dig into the story a little bit.
Thank you, Mike. I'm very happy to be here with you. So my story started almost 10 years ago, my story in additive manufacturing, when I joined my family company, Aidro. The company was founded by my father almost 40 years ago, working in hydraulics, valve, manifold, and hydraulics components. But a few years ago, we decided to explore a new technology that is 3D printing. And we found an amazing new solution, a new technology for hydraulics. So the beginning was for making prototypes or tooling for our production. But more and more we used the technology and we opened our mind. We understood that additive manufacturing is very useful to create innovative parts. And then we started our journey into this amazing technology.
That's fantastic. And so what was it like kind of growing up and around your family's business? Like, were you kind of in the shop regularly? Was it something that kind of grabbed you early on when you were growing up?
Yes, because also when I was a child, I, learn day by day with my family, at dinner time or during, family travel. So I grown up together with the valve industries. So I already know since I was very young what is a valve, what is an hydraulic component, who are the customers and the application. But when I finished my university, I didn't join immediately the family company. I had my own, career because I'm graduated in business administration. So I'm not an engineer. I'm not a technical background. And then had the opportunity to work in an international company, in a chemical company. And I learned how to work, in a multinational environment, work in different groups. And then when I joined the family company, I had already an experience how to manage a company. And I was very lucky because I had the opportunity to introduce new way of thinking in the family company, new technology like additive manufacturing. And of course, at the beginning it was not easy because we are still a small, medium-sized company working in Italy with all the Italian people with very, good mentality, but also very Italians. That is nice for something, but we have also some limitation. And but I think we have a good mix now. So we have a lot of international customers, and we have the opportunity to participate in events, conference with an open overview. So more and more, I think we are transforming the company from a medium Italian company to a more international reality.
Sure. And can you talk about the kind of decision-making process around bringing additive into the company? I mean, as you mentioned, you're a small, medium-sized company, so investment into certainly metal additive is going to cost
it's quite yes,
millions of dollars. And
yes, I can tell you we were quite crazy to do this investment. Because at the time in hydraulics, there was no other company using 3D printing or officially making parts with 3D printing or prototypes and so on. So we were a kind of pioneer. But
when was this? Was this kind of early?
It was 5 years ago.
Okay.
We officially introduced the metal 3D printing. We started more or less 10 years ago with polymers printing, so for prototypes, tooling, and so on. And then we do we have done some experimental with service provider or with external support. But then when we were really amazed by the technology and we start to test the first valve printed by a service provider, we printed in aluminum, a small valve, a small valve body. And we tested in our test bench. And we were really surprised by the mechanical properties and the fatigue resistance. Because at that time, as I told you, there was no other company making 3D printed valve or hydraulics components. Some case study, but not real parts. And we were really convinced by the technical aspect. So we tested, we see that everything was working fine, or in some cases also better than conventional manufacturing. So from the technical point of view, we were really, convinced that is a good technology. And we had, of course, an internal discussion with my family, so with my mom, brother, and so on. And as I say, we were quite crazy to say, yes, we want to invest. And we decided to purchase our first metal printer. We decided for the laser power bed fusion technology. That for the kind of valve or part we are making is the best one, because we have a lot of internal channel, complex part, small, medium size component. So this is a very good technology for us.
So was that the biggest challenge that you thought additive could solve for, was these complex small geometries, or was it more of a business case where, okay, now we have this technology, we can turn around parts faster or enter a new market? What was the challenge that you thought would?
The idea at the beginning was to have complex parts and make some innovation, because at the end, hydraulics is quite a conservative market. We have the same product for at least 70 years, same shape, of course, with some improvement. But if you look at the pump or a valve, the shape, the external shape is exactly the same for the last 70 years. And so we were really convinced that we have to do something new, also on the shape and on the performance of the valve and the hydraulics component. And we have to think, out of the box. So to use a different technology to move towards the innovation. And with additive manufacturing, we are able to make complex parts, smaller parts compared to the conventional hydraulics component, with a better also performance. For example, I can tell you, we have one of our valve, and we call it AMES valve, the C-top valve. We tested at 1,400 bar, and this is really a very high pressure for a conventional valve. But thanks to the fact that we have designed all the channel, all the additional material exactly where it is needed, so where there are the higher pressure, we are able to reduce the weight, but at the same time to have a higher performance. So this is very something that gives us, a lot of new ideas, new optimism also to go further in the activities. And we started to make parts for different applications, not only the conventional application that we have. So from conventional mobile machinery like tractor, for example, now we are moving to aerospace sector. That is something that is completely new for us. So with our conventional hydraulics component, we are not selling into aerospace, but with 3D printing, we are able to have a customer in the aerospace sector. So we open, the market and the business for our companies. And also we started to speak with big companies that normally are not looking at the small companies like us.
And so what's that conversation like? Maybe start with some of your existing customers that you had and kind of telling them, hey, we made an investment in metal additive manufacturing. Was your goal to expand kind of the existing customer base and kind of do more projects in kind of that same vein, or kind of like you were saying, was kind of expand out to aerospace or areas that you may not have had as much touch in? Kind of where did you find the conversations going furthest as you adopted the technology?
Yes, this is a very good question because it was our main topics at the beginning. So we started to discuss with people from hydraulics or fluid power sector. But of course, these people, especially technical people, are really conservative. So sometimes the discussion could be very hard because some people are looking, okay, there are some benefits, but what is the price? So when we start to speak about the prices, we already know that the discussion will be very difficult because we prefer to say that with 3D printing, we have added value and sometimes a higher price. But we have more benefit to use 3D printing for spatial application or to find the solution that is not possible with the conventional manufacturing. So in the hydraulic sector, we have many different projects. But I can say that the discussion with hydraulics company is not always easy. And that's why we start also to do a training. We already performed 2-3 times a training for a fluid power company to help the technical people to think about additive manufacturing as an alternative to the conventional manufacturing for special parts or difficult application. And thanks to the fact that we had the same language, so the same technical language, same know-how, we are able to speak with technical people from hydraulics and explain them which are the benefits of the technology. So this is very interesting, very hard conversation, but we have some very good results for hydraulics part. But as you said, we have also new customers or new people from different sectors like aerospace or oil and gas energy that are not our conventional business. But thanks to additive manufacturing, we start to speak with also big companies, especially from the energy sector, because they are very interested to learn about this technology because they already see the benefits. If in the case of the fluid power people, we have to tell them which are the benefits, people from energy, they already know the benefit of using additive manufacturing. So we start, different point of view. And in this case, we are explaining how to do the parts or how to design the parts to have the highest benefit of the technology.
Sure. And how did that kind of evolution of adoption of additive manufacturing impact what you were doing kind of from a management style internally, right? So it sounds like you had to develop a new training program or extend training that you had already done for customers. Presumably you had to kind of think about how do you get the right types of files in to print that may be different than what you've been doing before. You may have to train different people for different skill sets. There's post-processing, like from kind of where you're sitting, like what was it like almost kind of building a company within a company and building out this technology?
Yes, we had a real revolution into the company because together with the additive manufacturing, we also have the reorganization. We introduced new people, new skills, so especially engineers on additive manufacturing. So it's not only the machine, but it's also the resources, the people. But also we started a new process to improve our organization. We decided to have the new certification 9100. Mm-hmm. So this is more for aerospace or automotive companies. So we improved our quality systems, we improved our procedures, how to do everything. We had also new software both for designing and both for, like encrypt data or protect files and so on. So we have we see a kind of transformation of the company from, I could say, a very common manufacturing company to a more digital company using 3D printing, and we are really open to other big company. We are now able to speak with big company because, big company have a lot of procedures. They have different steps before they can speak with you and so on. But now we are organized with good people and good procedures.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've learned through some of the conversations through this podcast with other small, medium-sized machine shop and additive manufacturing shop owners is one of the challenges they face when bringing in the additive manufacturing equipment is expensive. I mean, it's several $100,000 at minimum, upwards of $1 million, depending on how many machines you're doing. And as they kind of enter, usually as kind of a pioneer, like you were saying, and into a new space, the lead time for sales is just longer, right? You have to potentially train people, you have to kind of validate a process. And so all that time, you don't have consistent market or consistent customer flow or customer product flow. So how do you kind of manage around that and manage expectations in terms of how you're originally talking with your family and your mom and your brothers about kind of bringing this in, and you probably have some sort of financial Excel spreadsheet, kind of here's what we think we can do. And then the reality of, were you right on, or were there different differences when it came to implementing in the real world?
Yes, exactly. You are perfect on the topic, because as you say, when we started 5 years ago, making also our business plan, we were really too optimistic about the lead time. Was not on the technical point of view, because at the end we were quite fast to create the environment, the department, all the necessary systems to run the machine. We hire an engineer who already has the experience how to run the machine. So we were quite fast to start to print, and also to design. But as you say, the lead time from when you install the machine and you start to sell the parts, it takes maybe months, maybe 6 months at least, because it's not only to understand how to print it, but all the process. So everything is before, so the powder handling, the gas. So there are a lot of procedures before the printing, during the printing, and the post-processing, especially when we are thinking about metal parts. So it's not only printing, but finishing. We do a lot of CNC machine to have the good surface roughness, or we machine the cavities of the parts, especially when we are speaking about manifolds. So there are a lot of process behind additive manufacturing, and probably this was the hard part. So to have everything in line and well organized. So for us, it took at least 6 months before we were ready to sell parts. And now also we are quite fast in the design phase. So normally if we start from zero, for example, in maybe 2-3 weeks, we already have the final design for the printing. But after that, we have the printing, the discussion with the customers, then the printing and the post-processing. So more and more we see that if there is a complex project, we need at least 1 or 2 months before we have the final parts. And this is quite, contradictory with the fast prototyping or fast delivery time. That is the, idea behind additive manufacturing. So sometimes we have discussion with the customers and we say, yes, it's fast, but the first part maybe is not so fast as you can expect.
That's great to hear, because I mean, that's the reality for 99% of people using additive outside of prototyping, right? There's so many different considerations you have to think about, and material selection and orientation of the build and post-processing. All of this stuff takes some iteration time, and certainly probably from where you're sitting there, you have this kind of big slope you have to climb to get everything set up, learning the machine, the ins and outs, and your procedures. But then as you start to kind of get that settled in, even though you're working with aerospace and energy, oil and gas, all these different types of entities that have somewhat different requirements, you start to accumulate learning that is transferable, I imagine, between all these different industries.
Yes, exactly. There are a good combination. I'm really happy to work for different sectors because we can take, more information and have a good mix of everything, and to find the best procedure. We are working, for example, in these days, I can tell you, for Leonardo helicopter. That is our new customers, and we are really proud to say that now we are official supplier for Leonardo. And we are working these days for the first part, and I can tell you that the procedure that we are making is very complex, but we take a good expertise from the energy sector. So we are now combining our expertise from the previous customers we had from the oil and gas. And we are, I can say, not fast, but well organized to face also the requirement from an aerospace customer like Leonardo. So it's very good to work for different sectors.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you're kind of building up this repertoire of new customers, new applications, and new knowledge internally that you can even grow further. One of the things that is consistent maybe across these different industries is kind of some of the conversations about sustainability. I know we were talking a little bit before kind of we hit record about kind of your efforts in that space. Do you want to talk a little bit more about kind of what are you thinking as you see additive and sustainability, whether that's materials or end product, or kind of how are your thoughts evolving on that conversation?
Yes, I think sustainability is a very important topic when we are using additive manufacturing, because it's a good combination. The main idea behind the additive manufacturing is to use less material or add material only where it is needed. So the principle is material saving, and this is energy saving. So we use less energy because we make a smaller part and very essential, and we use only the essential material. So I think at the base of additive manufacturing, there is a good sustainability. But more and more, we see the big potentiality. For example, a few months ago, we had, for our conventional production, we need a new machine to test a new valve series. And the idea came from our head of production of the hydraulics department. He told us, why we don't create a 3D printed part that allowed us to refurbish an existing machine to have this new functionality. And I was really surprised because the idea came from the conventional department that we have, not from the additive manufacturing department. But this is very good. It's a kind of contamination between the two departments that we have now in the company. And then we worked together with the head of production, hydraulics production, and one of the designers of AM. And they created two small manifolds, two small components that are installed in our existing machine. And we are now able to test our new valve faster and safer compared to the previous activities. So this is an example. So we avoid to purchase a new machine, a new test bench, but we reused the existing machine with additive manufacturing. So this is really one of our internal example. But we see also from external customers, there are a lot of parts that could be, repaired compared to replace it, especially when we are speaking about big components like big systems, big hydraulic system with a lot of components. Sometimes it's possible to replace just one component instead to replace the whole system. And with additive manufacturing, we see that this is really possible. Start to think in a different way. So we have a lot of examples that we see that sustainability is really implemented thanks to additive manufacturing. And I think that for the future, because every country have big plans about CO2 emission reduction or net zero carbon and so on. So I think additive manufacturing will be more and more popular as a sustainable technology.
Is that something that some of your customers are bringing up as well? As obviously cost is always a cost, performance, but are key metrics for any manufacturing purchase. But is sustainability, are you getting more questions about that generally, both in your additive kind of business, but more generally in kind of your broader kind of company interactions?
Yes, I think it will be more and more. For example, in electric vehicle now are more and more common, and for example, we need lighter components for an electric car because, of course, to have lighter component means use less energy. For example, we made was 2 years ago. We made a heat exchanger, a 3D printed heat exchanger. To cool down the battery of the electric car. This was a project made with the University of Turin. And this was very interesting because we save a lot of weight making the 3D printed heat exchanger compared to purchase a heat exchanger from the market. And due to the fact that it's an electric car, we save a lot of energy during the life of this car. So again, the possibility to make lighter components give us the possibility to use less energy. So again, a more sustainable approach with the 3D printing.
And since you've started your additive manufacturing kind of journey 5-6 years ago, have you seen other companies in your kind of competitors or similar companies to yours, small, medium-sized kind of organizations, also adopt the technology, or is it still pretty quiet?
If I'm thinking about hydraulic sector, now there are more, I say the big companies are, of course, looking at the technology. But I can tell you this funny story because this was in the exhibition in Hannover Messe. It was 3 years ago. Yes. And we, for the first time, no, it was 4 years ago, 2017. Yes, it was 4 years ago. We had during the exhibition, the Hannover Messe is the biggest fluid power exhibition in Europe. And we had our small booth in the Italian pavilion, and we showed the 3D printed valve and manifold. And we received a lot of visitors from big companies like Bosch, Rexroth, Parker, Heaton, so very, the biggest. And all the people were amazed because for the first time, they had seen 3D printed hydraulics component. And we received, the top management of this big company. And they say, "But what is it? Is it possible? Is it a dream?" And we say, no, it's possible. It's metal. It's really metal parts. And you can use as the conventional hydraulics parts. So at that time, we were the first as a kind of pioneer. But after 1 year at the same exhibition, we found a lot of new, case study or example shown in the different booths. So we were quite happy to see that also other companies starting to investigate the technology. Probably the most are at the research level, just making some experimental, because it's quite hard to find high volume production for 3D printing in hydraulics. It's really a good combination between design and the final application. So it's not for massive high volume production, but more and more I see that big companies are looking at this technology. So I'm really happy to see that also fluid power fluid power people are interested in this technology, and the medium-sized company I think are faster, like we are, compared to the bigger. But of course, the investment is quite huge. So we need people like crazy like us to start to use this technology. But I'm quite confident that in the future, we will see more and more 3D printed hydraulics components.
I've always thought even though small, medium-sized companies are don't have the same amount of resources from a financial perspective. They're so fast and able to solve different problems quicker in most. There's not a bureaucracy train that they have to go climb up and rub up against to make sure that all the contracts are signed in the right way. Like you can kind of shortcut a few things in that sense. But kind of as you think about kind of your career and as you are in kind of this leadership role with company and your family's business, like what are the kind of skill sets that you've found kind of most valuable in growing this additive manufacturing kind of business kind of really from scratch?
I think the first is to be very enthusiastic and optimistic. Believe in dreams, something like this. Because at the beginning it was really kind of dream for us to start to be a 3D printer, 3D printing company. But at the end, I think that to have good people around us is very important. People who believe the same, so have the same vision and believe that this technology is one of the best technology we have to implement. Of course, we are learning day by day, so there are already no written book that we can follow completely. So it's something that is a learning process, but it's something that gives us a lot of, again, enthusiasm, because we are creating a lot of new parts just from the minds, just from the idea. We are able to have the physical part, I can say in few days, at least, or a few months. It depends on the complexity, of course. So this is something that is very good. So, for example, one of my colleagues, he had for the Saint Valentine. I can tell you this story. He want to, to make a nice gift for his fiancée, the classical rings, and he asked me if he can 3D print the rings in the office for, to make the announcement about the fiancée. And I was very happy because I see that the 3D printing is entering in the private life of my employee. So, and also for this very important moment in the life of a boy,
sure.
to make a 3D printer rings, I really appreciate it. So I think, good people, so good team, it's really important for the success of a small company.
Absolutely. And so one thing I always like to ask people about, kind of, especially in different kind of walks of the additive manufacturing ecosystem, is kind of what does their average day look like? Kind of what do you do when does your day start? What do you do in the morning? Kind of what's life, day in the life of a typical day at the company, at the shop?
Yes, we have, I can say, typical day, but every day is different. Every day we have different problems to solve. So there are unexpected things that are happening, from technical problems or from customer calling and say, oh, I need something in 1 day or 2 days. So all the plans that we have maybe the day before are completely revolutionized. So I think the flexibility is the first important topic. So to be very flexible and always think that the customers are our main partner. So to be very friendly with the customers, to be open, to have a fast reply to them. This is very, very important. So we make, of course, some plans every day, but we are also flexible to change our plan immediately if the customer is calling and say, I need something, or if there are some problem. I think the people working with me in Aidro, they are all flexible, especially the ladies, because they are, I have a good women team. They are also very good friends and very, making also the environment very friendly. So make some, some joke, to have a coffee all together when it's possible, of course, due to the pandemic. But I think we started the morning, sometimes with a short meeting, just maybe to make some plans. But again, during the day, we have a very big open space. So all the people from technical and sales are all together. So again, the discussion and the talk are open. So we are very flexible, and we share all the topics, all the problems. So most of the people knows what the company is doing, which are the main projects. And also the people from the production, they physically are in a separate department compared to the open space, but I try to involve them every day in the different projects. If we have new customers, and we have periodically meetings. And now we have also, thanks to the fact that we have a good weather, we have open air meetings in the garden of the company. And yes, we have a very good relationship inside the company.
That's fantastic. And so we're in April going into May 2021. What's on your radar for the rest of the year? What are you looking forward to? Are there exciting things coming down the pike in terms of your growth or new projects? Certainly that you can talk about. Nothing nothing top secret, but
no, not top secret. Of course, I hope that 2021 will be a very good year, because after last year that was full of uncertainty, I'm quite optimistic for this year. We started very good, especially from the hydraulic sector. That is started in a crazy way, because all the different customers are growing very fast. Maybe they are recovering something that they missed last year. So I'm quite positive. We are in a hurry every day to supply the customers. And I'm really positive for this year also, because the people need to have a good vision for the future. We are quite, lucky, because we are mechanics, hydraulics, so it's one of the sector that is really necessary, because our components are used in all the machine that need the movement, from a tractor to an airplane to an industrial machine. So we have a wide range of customers. And this year I'm really positive, because I see a lot of projects that we started maybe 2 years ago, and the last year were quite sleeping. This year we are started, especially we have a good project for heat exchanger, 3D printed heat exchanger. We found a different application from cars, like I told you before, from industrial application or aerospace. So I think one of our best projects of this year will be the 3D printed heat exchanger. And my team is working hard also to make, design, simulation, all the calculation for the different application of heat exchanger. Then we have other projects, especially in aerospace. We are working with an Italian startup for satellite. And they launched a few days ago the first satellite. So again, we cross the fingers that everything will work fine. So I'm really positive for this year.
That's fantastic. Well, if people want to find out more information about the work you're doing, we'll certainly share the website, but are there any other places that you'd like to point them? Are there any upcoming trade shows, either virtually or in person, that you'd like to highlight?
Okay, so for the website, I can tell you that we are restyling our website. So I think in May we will launch the new website, more fashion, more with a good layout. Because again, we are a small company, so we have done our website internally. So like homemade website, but now we decided to have a more professional website. And so for sure, in a few weeks, you will find more information on website. We are really active on LinkedIn or social network, that I see it's a very good place for find information, technical information or business information. And about in person, It's a good question because in Italy, as I told you before in our private conversation, is not already everything is not already organized. But I think in September, for sure, we will restart to have a physical event. At least in Italy, we have the RM Forum in September. That is 2 days conference for additive manufacturing. And I will be there, I hope, to be there physically, also as a women 3D printing ambassadors, because I'm the ambassador for Italy. And we will have our booth for the first time, a physical event. And then I think other events probably next year. We didn't plan for the moment to join physically conferences or events, but thanks to the fact that we have a lot of virtual events, I will be in different conferences in the next month. So I'm sure I can see people from the screen.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. It was great. We look forward to hopefully certainly seeing you virtually more and then in person one of these days soon.
Yes, thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.